Deebo Samuel has the most receiving yards by a 49er through the first 7 games of a season in franchise history. Deebo has 819 yards receiving. You want to read the other 4 people on the list?
Yeah, Jerry Rice, Dwight Clark, Jerry Rice.
There's the list. So there's some context of how good of a year Deebo Samuel's having. Hey, we're glad you're watching this video. Subscribe to this channel and give the video a like. We appreciate it.
Yeah, 55% of you are watching this and are not subscribed, so make sure you do that, as well as do our podcast below in the description. That's a pretty good crew, guy, of people to be named with. Obviously, I tweeted just joking around Deebo Rice. You know, he's having a remarkable season. He is a player that is just, I mean, to me, what makes a star wide receiver, and this is obviously Jerry's, the GOAT, but even Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, whenever they show the list of Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, it's not just be able to do one thing. Like forever, we just thought Deebo is this really physical wide receiver. Well, right now, he can take a quick screen, 80 yards. Now, he's not a 4-2 guy, right? Like Randy Moss and Terrell Owens score on that play. He doesn't have elite speed, but he's definitely fast enough. He can dominate in the short game, right? Quick outs, quick slants, that type stuff. The deep passing game and the intermediate passing game, which kind of just evolves into the, one of the go-to routes for them is that drag across the middle on play action stuff. And then the deep bomb that he hit today, shows that he has no problem pushing just a corner like, hey, I'm just going to fucking run by you. So right now, to me, he encompasses everything that you need out of a star wide receiver. And some star wide receivers, like Keenan Allen, is never really going deep. For the most part, he's only doing his work 20 yards, but he's so dominant at it. And forever, that was kind of Deebo, just like it was within 20 yards. But now if he can add that element of going deep, we know that, everything else and just his physicality of breaking tackles is, let's face it, he's one of an all-pro level player through, the first half of the season right now. That's the level in which he's operating on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think opening up downfield throws for Deebo is really important to his health. Having him be, the yak leader in the league or somewhere near it, he was 3rd behind DeAndre Swift and Cooper Kupp. I don't know if that's coming into the day or after today, but looking at
Cooper Kupp is having an incredible season.
But the thing with Deebo, John, is I've been really consistent. I've said this for a while now. I worry if the only way you can get him the ball is around the line of scrimmage. Those are high-impact collisions. Those are a lot of people around your body as opposed to one-on-one with a corner just dragging you down. And that's a dangerous place to be for a high-volume, high-usage player. And getting him the ball in space, when you say get your playmaker the ball in space, it usually feels like that means we're talking about throwing bubble screens to guys.
Like Rondale Moore, a guy get on the ball, let him just make plays.
Yeah, and end arounds, all that stuff. Jet sweeps, that's all well and good. But there's heavy people running around the line of scrimmage, and there's a lot of them. There's crowds. Crowds is where guys get hurt in crowds.
Yeah,
people falling on you.
Shrapnel, collateral.
Collateral damage. Opening the downfield plays up for getting him the ball downfield to me is it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, if you can do that, then you have everything in your arsenal, and you're a complete player. Because when you're not a complete player, I've never schemed against anybody, but I've heard coaches talk about this during game weeks. You take away what they can't do, right? And you force them. Okay, Deebo, we're going to crowd you around the line of scrimmage because we don't think you can beat us deep. So if he starts threatening you deep, it's what makes great players. What is Devontae Adams' weakness? Well, he didn't run that fast at the combine. Well, he plays fast. I see him hit bombs all the time. He has no weakness, right? Larry Fitzgerald in his prime. You see the play DK made today. DK's game has just become more well-rounded. And when you become more well-rounded, you become harder to stop and harder to defend against. And then you benefit from what are your other pieces on offense? Because if you're not the only guy, what makes Devontae so incredible is he doesn't really have any other wide receivers. In theory, when Kittle comes back and Ayuk, you can't just put 3 DBs on Deebo. So it's you are not going to be able to stop me one-on-one. But you don't have a choice because we're running the ball well. We have a star tight end, and we have a couple other wide receivers that can get open. So then it's just, is our quarterback completing balls? Because if he is, I'm going to fuck you up. And that's kind of what Deebo's doing right now. We all know they're going to throw it to 19, and it hasn't mattered. They've thrown it to him short, they've thrown it to him intermediately, and they've now hitting him deep. And that to me is, it's cool to see. Like I have a soft spot for watching, just young players come along and improve. And, we had talked so much, and like you just said, it was just like, God, is he going to be able to last? Because everything is around the line of scrimmage, and he just takes these. Part of his yak was like breaking linebacker tackles, right? And now it's like, well, just treat him more like a wide receiver. It's like, okay, Jalen Johnson tackles him is a lot different than Ray Lewis, right?
Yeah, he's just
not obviously Roquan Smith.
He just, when you watch the league, he's one of the most reliable players in the NFL, which as a great player is a unique combination, right? To be a great player and to also be reliable. And I think it's safe to say he's a great player, and he plays like a franchise cornerstone, which is what his numbers say he is. But I mean, he makes his plays in the big moments. Like when you watch Deebo, there's not a lot of, trash time. It is moments. Like he has moments. It really is. I don't know how. It's just he has this stat blew my mind, John. Deebo Samuel now has 8 100-yard receiving games in his career. 4 of them have come this year, which doesn't quite feel like as a team but he's just been carrying the load for them.
Well, another just big picture topic with Deebo, he was taken above A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. And those guys, let's face it, are just stars, right? Like Deebo or AJ made plays today too, but DK had a catch today that's just like, Jesus. That back shoulder touchdown, you're just like, that's what, and he just physically looks like a superstar. Every game you watch AJ Brown, you're like, that's what a blue chip big boy looks like. And now Deebo's just like, you can talk about him this year like them. Like he's a dominant player. And that to me makes it easier on like, this team gets crushed on some of their draft picks. Like, well, they could have these guys instead of Deebo. No one's saying that right now.
Yeah. It's a good point because he's not the little engine that could, right?
He looks a lot different than those two guys, right?
He does. But he was the 36th pick in the draft out of the SEC.
Yeah.
Right. Like they believed him when they drafted him.
And those guys come from the SEC too, obviously on the same team.
Right. I'm just saying, like, this is not like, I think sometimes Deebo, it's like, oh, it's good to see Deebo doing it. It's like, no, this is what he was drafted to do. And and I think a lot of times, like, being the person that comes out of nowhere is great. That's its own category. Being the person that there was a lot expected of that delivers on those expectations is also great. And you don't get as much credit for that usually. Usually you get credit for, we didn't know you'd be any good, and look how great you are. That's really cool. When something's expected of you, we get dismissed. Like, we expect you to be great. So congrats on living up to expectations.
Agreed.
But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of everything.
Now, we saw
Leadership.
flashes. We saw flashes his rookie year. Last year when he was healthy, he was really good. A huge knock on him has been just like the soft tissue stuff. He pulls hamstrings. Can he stay healthy? And he has been healthy this year. Even, I think, last game, he tweaked something. And boom, he hasn't missed any games. He's been playing. He's been reliable. A huge part about being a star, an underrated part, I think, about being a star is, are you reliable? Do you show up? Like that, I think that's, I'd say Kittle's kind of had a ding on that. Like no one takes anything away how good he is, how much talent he has, how physically dominant he is when he's on the field, but you just now kind of go into every season like, can you get 12 games out of Kittle? Right? Like just because Kittle's coming back this week, are you just sure that he's here for the rest of the season, And that's where if Deebo can just have a season where you play 17 games and then again, like he's contract eligible after the season, like I would want to see one more game, or I mean, not one more game, one more season. Like I can't just break you off the Amari, 5 for 100, 20 a year. Can you do it 2 years in a row? That is just a big picture question we were talking about, because to me, superstars.
Let's take a moment to tell you to go to overland.com/ham and get in some well-made, beautifully crafted, and very comfortable slippers.
And do you guys want to win money like Guy and I have been doing for about the last month? Just go to mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. Get your gamble on. Google Devontae's resume. And when we talk about Kittle, look at Kelsey's resume. It's about doing it year after year after year, which is hard. I mean, there's some you're getting hit. Some of it's just luck, and others just like your body type. Like, did they get him on a better stretching plan? I know they had talked about that. His workouts over the offseason were different. This year he was healthy. Was it last year? Remember, he broke his foot, right, in the Camp Jimmy? So maybe it's just they've turned a corner. But the more data you have, the better you feel about a guy. Like, you look at Keenan Allen's resume. It's like 5 straight years of just every year doing whatever. Cooper Kupp, he had the 1 year, I think, where he tore his knee. But other than that, it's just production. And it's just very nice to just be able to rely on a person. And it's the one thing, really, the Niners star players. Trent really is not theirs. I mean, they just acquired him last year. And really, he's been pretty reliable for them. But like Kittle, just injury-wise, Deebo injury-wise, Bosa had the freak injury, but he still missed a bunch of time. Obviously, Jimmy's missed a bunch of time. Probably Fred Warner's really the only guy that is basically just feels like he never misses a game, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking right now. So he's got – actually, those are old numbers. But here's Devontae Adams, since you mentioned him. Devontae, year 3. Devontae was good year 2. But year 3 is when it really started for him. And this is year 3 for Deebo. 75 catches for Devontae in year 3, 12 touchdowns. 74 catches and 10 touchdowns in year 4. 111 catches and 13 touchdowns in year 5 in 2018. And then had a 5-touchdown year, 83 catches, 115 and 18 touchdowns last year. I mean, so, year 3, it was a steady build, and he took off. And Devontae –
he missed a game here and there.
Yeah, his body of work is consistent. Year to year, though, he does miss games.
I think in 19, he had a hamstring that knocked him out that month, right? That's 4 games he missed there. Last year, he missed a couple games. I can't remember what the injury was. This year, I mean, I don't, COVID. Yeah, not his fault.
But that's a different category.
I could live with, if Kittle had 4 straight years of like, hey, 14 out of 16 every year. That just hasn't really been the case, right? We're already at minimum this year will be 14 out of 17, which I think, would you take right now 13 out of 17? If I just told you that right now, you're taking 13 out of 17.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think you have to.
But this goes back to, you always used to joke around like the worst guy to draft on, early, when people put a lot of stock in your like first and second round picks are linemen, right? There's offensive linemen. They're boring. But when you do take a skill guy, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, you just think like, could this guy be a stud? And then when he starts to become a stud, it is sweet. It is sweet. Part of Elijah Mitchell, the overwhelming 99% of Niner fans, let's face it, had never heard of him before he came to the Niners. Like, you're not watching Louisiana Lafayette. Hell, they're not even really on TV. It's not like when you draft Saquon Barkley, everyone knows who he is. When you draft even, A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, those Ole Miss teams weren't good. The reason that the DK was so famous was because of the picture, right? It wasn't because people had the scouting report on the guy.
Right.
That's the difference of all the Bama
his production
guys.
was not, but also his production was not, right. If he'd been
I would say the
Bama
skill guys over the last several years
helps when you're playing like five or 6 CFP games by the time you're a sophomore. Or I guess you couldn't do that, but by the time you're a junior, like a lot of those guys, junior year, they played in 6 college football playoff games.
Yeah,
or at least been around,
that helps too.
Big moments, all that kind
Who's
of
this
stuff.
Trevor Lawrence guy? Oh yeah, I've watched him playing 7
as
championship
a true
games.
freshman beat Alabama in the national title at Levi Stadium, by the way.
Weren't you there?
Yeah, I was there for that game.
An absolute ass kicking.
Yeah, it wasn't.